The following statement I'm about to make about Money in the Bank 2016, some people may think, Tubby, you're crazy. Well, we're talking about Money in the Bank, and this is that discussion video going over the results, talking about what could happen in the future, the storylines, basically the fallout from WWE Money in the Bank. And that statement that I'm going to make is that Money in the Bank itself was a pitch-perfect pay-per-view in terms of storylines either being ended or started in every single match, minus the pre-show. If you were to go to WWE Network right now and go back to the pay-per-view and fast forward to kind of the ending part of the match, you could kind of get a story base. Now, there were some botches, and I'm going to be honest with you here. It may confuse a lot of people with the tag team match. A lot of people are complaining about the fact that Carl Anderson was legal because he tagged in Aiden English when English was on Big E's back, essentially, to slam him down for the big ending. Carl Anderson tagged himself in, and there's a lot of confusion with that. I'm instantly going to dispel that and say this. We're, too busy nitpicking. 8-man tag matches have, a false guy in there all the time. I think WWE did it recently. What I look at it as, if I'm looking at it from a storyline perspective, and this is why I'm doing these discussion videos that we actually talk about the pay-per-view and kind of look at it as not this just pissed off fan that is criticizing them for botching it. The way I look at it is this. The club is going to have to feud with people. You're going to have Styles going with Cena, and then the club maybe going for the tag team titles, etc. The Bullet Club is very good in New Japan about being able to focus on multiple titles. You're able to get some wins. You're able to get some losses. In this case of this tag team match, what I saw, if I'm looking at it from an art perspective, is I saw Carl Anderson. We'll just pretend he wasn't going for the tag, right? You have Aiden English getting laid out. Just absolutely laid out. Once Aiden English is laid out by the club's finisher, that is showing how devastating that club's finisher is. Aiden's out. Just like when Triple H pedigreed Daniel Bryan, people said, how can a guy that hasn't wrestled or wrestles once a year, how does that pedigree keep Daniel Bryan down long enough so Randy Orton can just slither in for the cover? Does it matter if it keeps him down? It's just, come on, man. It's a storyline. It's just about time frame here. The ending was a little botched. It could have been a little bit better, but I could dispel it with this. If I'm looking at it, you're going for the pin. Carl's got the pin. And 1, 2, Big E picks him up for the big ending, right? He's got him up top. He could drop Carl Anderson down at any point. Doc Gallows is hesitating. Doc Gallows is sitting there going, wait a minute. If I wait for him to hit the big ending and then I clothesline him over, we can save him, right? Why go running right after him now? He could drop him as I'm running towards him. And as he does that, Big Cass comes running in, and Big Cass clears out Doc Gallows. Boom. He's gone. Did I say Doc Gallows? I did, right? See, I'm so into my storytelling and storybooking here that he gets knocked out. And then comes the big ending, which clears out the other guy. And then it goes back to the rivalry, which should have been the club versus the New Day before it turned into a 4-man match, that the New Day were able to retain their titles because of the club's devastating finisher on Aiden English and the Vaudevillains, who could take a loss because they weren't in a huge feud. That's the way I'm looking at that match. If it was meant to go somewhere else and it was botched, well, that art form was messed up. That is what I took from that match. That is my honest results. That's my honest opinion on that. I'm not going to look at it as trying to nitpick the botch. That is what I think. Some people wanted me to clarify that on Twitter. All right, let's move down the card. So after that match, we jumped up into, and that match went a good time, including the entrances. I think we were a little over 20-some minutes, I think 25. Then we had a long intermission, not necessarily an intermission, but a backstage conversation between the heels that were going to be in the Money in the Bank briefcase match. Then we had Baron Corbin versus Dolph Ziggler. Now, the match itself, I don't know. It started off kind of like the wrestling match, and then it turned into a little bit more physical. I like when Dolph Ziggler is super loud in his matches, and he's basically saying, calling up, hey, lift me up twice, and then I'll counter it, right? You can basically hear it. He's calling out his spots. In the end, Baron Corbin did get the victory. In this match, it's actually a pretty good sequence, but Baron Corbin got the victory, and the thing that we came from this, when I said this was a near pitch-perfect pay-per-view, is the opening match set up based on my understanding of what happened on screen, is the club's finisher laid Aiden English out so long that it allowed the New Day to retain their titles. That is what I took from it, you know? Maybe that's not what you took from it. Maybe it's supposed to be the Big E's finisher is so devastating. Carl got rolled out of the ring. Let's look at it that way. Let's try to be happy. Let's try to just take what it is. It is for what it is. It is an art form. It's wrestling. It's just entertainment, guys. Come on, be happy. Don't be upset about that. So as we move on, after that match, we had a commercial for Gold Bond, and then it came into the tag team match. And this is another reason why this is a perfect example why this pay-per-view on paper was actually perfect. We were a little upset, Dana Brooke is getting thrown in for Charlotte. Why? What is going on here? Meanwhile, Sasha Banks can't get on TV, right? That's the TV narrative. Well, if they don't have anything for Sasha Banks to do right now, don't do it. And people say, well, they have something for her to do. Give her a title match, but not yet. Natalya, you're clearing out the older people. Not necessarily clearing out the older people, but what I mean is people that have been here longer, people that have held the championship before, you're kind of making Charlotte look stronger. So ultimately when Sasha Banks beats her, that victory means more for Sasha because now Charlotte, having legitimate wins over former women's champion Natalya, wins over Becky Lynch now and Natalya in tag team matches. I mean, she's kind of building up her resume a little bit one by one, even if the matches kind of are, a little gimmicky at times, especially with the Ric Flair being banned and then Dana Brooke coming out. But if you look at what it turned into, and I said this a long time ago, there's going to be a string, and I thought it was going to be Paige at first, maybe Alicia Fox. They were going to throw divas that, really weren't wrestling or doing anything, basically feeding her to Charlotte, kind of like Roman Reigns, where you feed her some lower talent, and then ultimately, boom, Sasha steps up. So here, you accomplish this by Charlotte is now done with Natalya. The feud is over because Natalya turned on Becky. And Becky and Natalya can go off and feud on TV while we wait for probably after Battleground for Sasha to come in and want her title opportunity against Charlotte, hopefully. Maybe sooner, maybe before Battleground. And then you let Becky Lynch and Natalya before SummerSlam get the spotlight essentially at Battleground and let them have a match. It's a great way to keep the talent kind of flowing and also extend Charlotte's reign into the Sasha Banks territory. So that's where I stand on that. I like the finish. I liked where they went with it. I like the fact that Becky Lynch got turned on and the fact that takes both of them away from the title picture now. And that's what I mean when I keep saying that this is a near pitch perfect pay-per-view. Because Charlotte has been in this feud with Natalya forever, right? It would not end. They threw him in this tag team match. Why did they do it? Why? This makes no sense. Well, it made no sense yet because you haven't watched the damn pay-per-view match. If you look at it now, why was this a tag team match? Oh, she turned on her. I get it. You're judging it beforehand. And I may be taking a different attitude towards this because I kind of enjoyed it. The matches themselves may have been a little hit or miss for me at times. You came into Apollo Crews and Sheamus, which we touched on a little bit earlier. I enjoyed the match itself a little bit. That spot with the white noise was fantastic, and then the roll-up was a great way to have Apollo Crews get a victory, and I'm all for it. Then comes time for Cena versus Styles. And Cena versus Styles killed it. I would easily give it bare minimum of 4. The finish was a great way to protect Cena. First of all, I think this is going to become the pay-per-view where Cena loses before he ultimately gets his comeuppance or his victory. And I'm looking at this as AJ Styles finally got his victory that everybody kept getting complained about versus if AJ's the leader of this dominant faction, man, that hasn't really been dominant. We're like, okay, the club exists, the club doesn't exist. Oh, the club reformed to take out John Cena. Well, if you get the pressure from John Cena and John Cena's able to kind of take you down, man, you might want to recruit some people. Maybe see Finn Balor come up. I know some people had said that this pay-per-view sucked because Finn didn't debut. WWE never once hinted, said anything about Finn debuting. You took some dirt sheet reporting and thought that he might debut. So, I don't necessarily take that as WWE fucked up because Finn was never in the cards. Just like, I want Donald Trump to not be president, but, the way he's on the rise, I can't control that. So, as far as the matches that went on after Cena versus Styles, right? I was still kind of in shock. The amount of kickouts, the calf killers, the AAs, the sequences. I liked how Cena literally said to kick out. I mean, Cena's always kind of loud in the ring, kind of calling his spots. But I really, really enjoyed Cena versus AJ Styles. And I said this before. I tweeted out that, I think every 5 years, Cena's just going to get a 5-star match from Meltzer now. And, first it was CM Punk, now it was AJ Styles. They're trying to say that AJ Styles is better than CM Punk, right? They both beat him at the pay-per-view. And Kevin Owens has now beat him at the pay-per-view. 3 big names, 3 of the top indie superstars in the world before they came to WWE have beat John Cena at Money in the Bank. That's kind of a big pay-per-view stat. So overall, Cena will eventually, kind of come back. He'll get his comeuppance back, and we'll definitely see some stuff going on. But I'm happy for it, man. I love it. And I said this before. I think it'd be a great way to have Cena and Styles feud, and then you have one of them not be on the same show. So the Bullet Club gets drafted to Raw, let's say, and Cena's on SmackDown. Cena's competing on SmackDown for the World Heavyweight Championship. He comes over and wow, Cena, really, you're competing? Wow. You lose to Styles, now you get a championship match. This is bullshit. Music hits, the club comes out, stops him, and the club shut it all down. Does that not make perfect sense? It makes perfect sense to me, and I love it, man. I think that the club could stop Cena's title reign. Whoever Cena's facing would get a bump from that. Cena could still focus on them, and then they wouldn't have to show up on that other show very much. They could just do it once in a while, so Cena's always looking over his shoulder. All right, the last thing we're going to touch on before the main event, because we're kind of going to wrap it into 2, is the Money in the Bank ladder match. All I'm going to say is, holy shit, these guys put their bodies on the line. The spots themselves, I really don't want to go through them all because I kind of, you expect these spots now, and you've seen a lot of them, like the Alberto Del Rio stomp, the powerbomb on the ladder near the end, the haluva kicks in the corner, the rolling cannons. So much had happened, and I just really, really enjoyed the match itself. In the end, Dean Ambrose won, which fed into my prediction was that it would eventually lead to a cash-in on the other guy, and I had thought it would happen on the cash-in result at Battleground. I thought that, I don't necessarily think they would rush it. I thought, okay, let's have Seth win for sure. I had called Seth Rollins winning in my prediction video. And then I said he would go on to get his rematch at Battleground. And before the match was over, just like Roman Reigns got screwed when Brock cashed in, Dean would cash in the same thing. And then that way they would say that Roman Reigns got screwed twice by a cash-in. And essentially here, he didn't because he lost clean to Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins is the better man. I said 2 years ago that, well, Seth Rollins is being billed as this top guy. He's just getting credentials, right? This guy is on top of the world. He's champion. He's going into everything, and then when he finally gets in, and you got Roman Reigns in the background, and everybody's saying, Roman Reigns is the next big guy, he's the next big guy, he's the next big guy, he's going to be the next big guy. I'm looking at it from Stone Cold and The Rock. So if he's going to be the next big guy, to have Seth Rollins in the forefront being the champion, the authorities constantly pushing him over, and he gets injured, and he goes away. He never lost that title. He comes back 9 months later, and boom, he reclaims his title just like he said he would. And he beat Roman. And then if you look at it in a 2-year picture, ultimately, Seth Rollins, in his mind, created the Shield. They went on a dominant rampage. They were tag team champions. They were United States champions, Dean Ambrose was. It was one of the best factions WWE's had. And then the Authority, Triple H, makes Seth Rollins turn on them. Right? He's the one that turns on him. He's the reason that Roman Reigns eventually would go on to be the face of the company. It was all Triple H's fault for getting Seth Rollins to turn on him. Seth Rollins became this big deal. Seth Rollins then would get hurt. Roman Reigns would ultimately get to the top. It could have been built as Seth Rollins is being built to the top. Roman Reigns finally wins the Rumble and he loses, just like The Rock losing to Stone Cold. I definitely could see that happening. So essentially Roman is going to be the guy, right? And then he wins the Rumble and then he ultimately loses to Seth Rollins. What if Seth Rollins had retained his title on the grandest stage of them all when everybody thought Roman Reigns was going to win? Here, we all thought Roman Reigns was going to retain, and then Seth Rollins pulled out the victory. That unexpected thing that makes me believe that that injury was not leading to the proper storyline. Honestly think that. Right now, I'm going to call anybody out on it. Because if you look at it on paper, is Roman became the top guy. Triple H inserted himself into the fucking Rumble to win the title to try to save his company. The same thing he did when he turned Seth Rollins to try to save his company and save his power with Evolution. Like, this is another Max fucking Landis, wrestling isn't wrestling. If you look at it and you stop your hatred for Roman Reigns, if you look at it from a story perspective, this whole thing has been a 3-4 year build. and could be one of the greatest histories retold on DVDs for years to come. Now, it kind of came that way, probably WWE never intended it to be that way, but if you look at it like that, Roman is being billed as the top thing, Triple H inserts himself in, Triple H at Mania loses to him, and then what happens? Seth Rollins comes back to reclaim his title when he's finally ready. And we haven't seen Triple H. That is a story. But to add another layer, the world comes round. Dean Ambrose, the other guy that was screwed, that went on to lose a bunch of matches. He's the guy that has Money in the Bank. He wins, he cashes in. He's not just the spot guy anymore. He is your WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Mitch, you've got a champion for a father. I'm so happy. All these matches led to something that's coming. To me, it's something to look forward to. I'm not going to necessarily critique the matches themselves. That's what I saw as an art form. That's what I saw as a discussion. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts and opinions on this. Was a very different reaction video than I normally do because I wanted to look at it rationally. So some people may think that I was kind of out there with that and kind of reading into it too much and giving WWE too much credit. To me, that's what I saw on tape if I was looking at it as a person that had no idea what was going on. So until next time, guys, thank you very much for watching. My name is Tubby Emu, and we will see you all later.